Hi, Colleen O'Connell-Campbell here, wealth advisor at RBC Dominion Securities and host of the Cash Rich Exit podcast. I'm joined today here on YouTube with Tania Guido, an estate planning specialist with RBC Wealth Management Financial Services. Tania has over 30 years of experience in financial services and is known for a thoughtful, transparent approach to insurance planning, helping clients and their advisors make confident decisions around personal and corporate strategies. So, what we're diving into today, buy-sell agreements. A buy-sell agreement is going to be valuable if it works on your worst day, not on your best day. But on your best day is when you want to start talking about it. So today we're going to talk about and we're going to cover why buy-sell agreements fail and what funding them really looks like. Now, of course, before we jump in, you need to know this video is for general information and education only. It isn't legal, accounting, estate planning, tax, or insurance advice. Please review any disclaimers that you're going to find towards the end and speak to your professional advisors about your specific situation. Hi, Tania. We're back. Hopefully those who are watching have already joined us for a couple of other videos. We're putting together a series to talk about how insurance can support business owners. And one really big and important one is around buy-sell agreements. So yes, first and foremost, what is a buy-sell agreement and why is it important?
For sure. Thanks for having me back. This is really great and fun. Didn't think insurance could be this fun. Okay, so what's a buy-sell agreement in real simple terms? Obviously, it is something, a legal document, of course, that's put together by the partners, whether that's one, sorry, not one, but two or three or four people. And it really lays out, you know, if a partner passes away, becomes disabled or sick, what happens to their ownership stake? That's
Mhm.
that's the ultimate purpose of a buy-sell arrangement. And what it really does is it hopefully removes some of that chaos when something like that happens, right? You're not scrambling to try to figure out what are you going to do and what's going to happen with their shares and all, well, what if they're only gone for 6 months and what if they're gone for 12 months and, all of those variations can definitely put a lot of strain and pressure on a business. If
Right, and if they
there
become an angel, you don't suddenly have a surprise new co-owner or partner who was never necessarily involved in the business, right? When it comes to like succession of those shares, whether it's, a spouse or an offspring or somebody else who might be in the deceased's will.
Exactly. And, a quick story just to share. I mean, and Colleen, this was like you and I together. We got a chance to meet a business that, once again, like probably many, didn't think something was going to happen, and unfortunately, something did happen. And I don't want to say that they were scrambling, but certainly they were not expecting it. And one of the owners did become an angel. And
Pretty young
again,
too,
it,
really. Very young, in their
you know,
30s, I think it was, if I recall. Yeah.
yeah. And so again, it's just kind of like, well, now they have to figure out that person's shares. The individual had a spouse. And so, right, how do you fairly distribute? There were a lot of things that were not laid out on the table beforehand. And so certainly it didn't make things that great with how everything had to happen. It happened. They made it happen. But again, there was chaos and there was a little bit of, where are we going to get this money to do what we need to do to make it fair and all of that kind of stuff. So once
And to
again,
not disrupt the business.
that's right.
Hmm. Hmm. So that's what it is, and that's why it's really important. Um, okay, so great. What would be a few reasons why a buy-sell agreement might fail? So you know it's important, you write one, you have it in place, um, but it doesn't work out. What are some of the top
Yeah.
reasons why that could happen?
The first and foremost one that I'm going to point out, that's probably one of the biggest ones, is going to be the funding gap.
Hmm.
So they've done what they had to do. They put a buy-sell agreement together. They've done all that hard work, but how are they going to fund it if something happens? So funding is definitely, I'm going to say, the biggest gap. And that's where, again, when we think about it from an insurance perspective, there are insurance solutions that can fill that gap from the funding perspective that can come into the business very immediately so that you could look after, dealing with what you have to deal with from a money perspective. Um, Also, I see them not being reviewed often enough, right? They've put it in place today, but not reviewed it in 5 or 10 years. And certainly the valuation of the companies grow, yet they, again, either don't have that updated in the documents. Maybe the funding isn't set up properly. And I think the last one that I'll point out, and this one is maybe a little bit less, but it's making sure the flow. So who should be the recipients of it? Once again,
Mm.
I'm not going to get all of
Yeah,
the
we're not
sort
going to
of,
get into the super technical aspects, but
but it's just sort of making sure that all of the lines are flowing in the right direction. Let's just put it that way for who should be the recipient of, when the time comes and when that money comes into the business.
and that point probably speaks to the coordination and collaboration of the professionals that you're working with to put the buy-sell agreement in place, right? If so, you're working with the um, some type of valuation, whether that's with the accountant or an actual certified business valuator, and then the accountant, the lawyer who's drafting the buy-sell agreement, and the insurance professional who is providing the level of funding. So all of those professionals really need to be on the same page. And then
Mhm.
you've already touched it, but I was going to say, like, true or false. Once you've signed it, you just put it on the shelf and it's all good. But you've kind of already addressed that. No, false. Not a good idea.
Oh,
Should review.
and the only thing I'll say is, again, like nobody is going to be able to tell you, well, should you review it every 24 months or every 5 years, right? I mean, I think it's important just to understand, obviously, your business. Has it grown significantly? Have there been a lot of changes in the business itself and who's doing what? And, share structures, tax laws, like there's so many things. So I think it's just being aware that once you have put it in place, it doesn't mean it's a set it and forget it document. It's something that needs to be, reviewed on a frequent enough basis for your business.
Yeah, so you just listed a few things, but might be helpful to say like some of the trigger points, maybe not the only trigger points, but some of the trigger points would be just a certain time has passed, so things can happen. So a certain time has passed, like maybe it's every 2 years, you just have it as kind of a routine, got to do a check on that. For clients that we work with on an individual basis, we normally say with their will every 5 years or when something significant happens, right? So maybe in the business you want to have it a little sooner. Maybe it's every 2 years or when something significant happens. So what's something significant then, right? Well, if your revenue and profits are growing, that's significant. If there's been like a doubling, a tripling, that's probably an indicator, right? If you've got some, heaven forbid, but that you haven't done that, but you've got some change in the ownership, right? That's a very important trigger. Um, what would be a few other
I
triggers? You,
think, well, we're saying the word trigger, but another word, like again, define those triggers, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
again, maybe at the beginning, it's a new partnership. We're getting to know each other. We're getting to know our business. 12 months, 24 months down the road, things are kind of feeling more coming together. So then what you defined as the execution of that buy sell when a partner is sick, injured, or of course passed away, those triggering events, maybe those have changed in your scope of your business. Maybe it's not that we say, if somebody's not returning from an illness after 12 months, payout happens. Maybe that's now 6 months, maybe that's 18 months.
Right.
So because you're, working
Because you've
more
actually
closely.
gone through an experience, now you've learned something about the business that would suggest there are adjustments to be made for the future for whoever is the ownership team on a going forward basis, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Changes in tax laws, changes in, other regulations and that kind of thing might have an impact. I mean, I think the list you could go on, like if you're watching here, you know your business well. What are the things in your business that might be crucial points for review of a buy sell agreement?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, funding the buy-sell agreement with insurance, what are the types of insurance that could be used to fund a buy-sell agreement?
For sure. Yeah. Well, I'll start with obviously the one that is less complex is going to be your life insurance because of course one of your partners has become an angel, and so that life insurance has to reflect their value, so their share percentage of the fair market value of the business. And so again, that's, I'm going to say, the most easiest one to set up, if you will, keeping in mind though that we need to make sure our structures are in place. The flow of that insurance money, is laid out, of course, when it comes into the corporation and then goes into the hands of the spouse of the deceased partner and so on. Where we, need to have a bit more complexities, or maybe it's a bit more complex, is just going to be the disability insurance and the critical illness insurance. And I certainly can go really deep into this, but I'm going to keep it sort of,
Yeah.
pretty basic. But the biggest thing is going to have to be, again, that what triggers a buyout. Because remember, we're not just like buy sell agreements is again the leaving of a partner of a business. So
Hmm.
what triggers that buyout? When we think about disability and we think about illness, how long does that timeline look like? And so those are going to be very important to work out when we are developing and putting together a solution to fit that agreement.
So that
Because
when you're talking about the disability and the critical illness piece, then that's where there needs to be some coordination with, as the co-founders or key people versus the buy-sell agreement, right? So there's another video that we recorded talking about key person coverage. But to your point, like this is coverage saying that this particular person who has a disability or has had a massive heart attack or cancer is actually going to exit the business. So it's not, they're parallel. The coverage might look similar, but it's a difference between, their shares actually being transferred to somebody else.
That's it. And again, not to go too technical, but
Yeah,
with
right.
disability insurance, think about it just from a context of yourself as an employee or as a business owner or
Hmm.
self-employed person.
Hmm.
Your disability want that to replace your income, right? So you become disabled, the insurance company will pay you a monthly benefit that's going to replace a part of your income.
Hmm.
Here, when we think about it from a buy-sell perspective, what that insurance company disability policy is going to do is it's going to pay out likely a lump sum amount
Hmm.
on the disability of somebody. But again, that's where we have to trigger the length of time before that payout happens, because now our buy-sell agreement says if you have been disabled for longer than 24 months or what have you, we'll buy you out. And that's where the insurance policy, from a disability perspective, will give that lump sum to the business to buy out
Hmm.
that partner's share,
Hmm.
right? And again, similar but not as complex with critical illness insurance, because again, you're sick, you have a heart attack, it's an immediate tax-free benefit. But again, same idea. When is that benefit that's going to pay out gonna then go further to buying out that partner?
Hmm. Hmm. So some really, really tough but essential conversations is what we're talking about here. And if you have business partners, these conversations, we can also help facilitate some of these conversations, but they're crucial, crucial, crucial to have in arranging to get a buy-sell agreement in place. And if you'd like to explore any of this, both Tanya and I would be happy to chat with you. Feel free to reach out to me, Colleen.Campbell at RBC.com, and we'll arrange that. And until next time, listen, all opinions expressed by me and my guests here are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of RBC Dominion Securities. This video is for information purposes only. Before acting on anything you hear or say, consult a qualified professional. Insurance products are offered through RBC Wealth Management Financial Services, Inc., a subsidiary of RBC Dominion Securities, Inc., and this content is produced with Canadian residents of the province of Ontario in mind. I'm a wealth advisor with RBC Dominion Securities, a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund.